Our guests today are David, Tonen, and Garth Holmes, the founders of BeResponsive Media. David has spent 25 years in marketing and is an incredible leader and communicator and knows every nook, cranny, and crevice of the industry. He is also a dedicated gardener and Toronto Maple Leafs fan, which shows you the pure faith that he has as a human being. Garth is a detail-oriented expert with over 20 years of experience in the web development and video production fields. And when I say detail-oriented, I mean this guy goes over everything with a fine-tooth comb and leaves absolutely no stone unturned. He is a true expert in his field and is honestly a miracle worker when it comes to SEO. Join us as we delve deep into digital marketing strategy, including web optimization, SEO, content, and so much more. David and Garth are true professionals and extremely knowledgeable in their field. Not to mention, they're incredible to talk with, and I honestly didn't know you could learn this much in a 2-hour conversation. This is the Ilienfero podcast. Now, without further ado, here's David Tonen and Garth Holmes.
First question then, starting off based on what you just mentioned, do you think that everybody could benefit from SEO and marketing?
Everybody or every company?
Every company,
Yeah.
every person, every individual.
Trying to figure out how does the average house mom benefit from SEO. But yeah, I would say for sure that every company needs SEO, even if they're really well established and their whole sales funnel is full. Because it may be full today, but it's not likely going to be full 6 months from now or a year from now. There's going to be a point, if a business is growing, they always need more business. And the best way to help people find you who don't already know who you are is to have really good SEO, so that whatever they're searching for, that is a service or product that you offer, that you can be found when they don't know your brand or the name of your company.
What if, I mean, it's one of the questions I wrote down too, is connected to that, was like, so for example, they're big production companies. Like one that I could think of, probably the biggest one in Canada, is called Radkey, and it's got like a massive list of directors and does like basically the biggest projects that are available here in Canada. And it's all done through marketing agencies, right? Like all of their connections from their producers and stuff, they come from marketing agencies. Like there are very few brands that would ever reach out to someone like that directly. Do you feel like it's still a benefit to a company like that, where they're basically getting 100% of their business from like the agency world, to have like a marketing team and like focus on that kind of stuff?
I'll let you answer that.
Well, yes, they're getting all. So you're saying that they're getting all their work from other marketing agencies. Is what you're saying?
As referrals.
Yes.
As referrals
And connections they've made.
and connections that they've made.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, if they want to grow beyond the connections they already have, then other marketing agencies have to find them. So yes, they may not be going out direct to the end user or the end consumer, I should say, but they still need to be found by that middle person or that middle agency that's looking for that service that they're offering. Because unless everybody knows about them, then they do have an opportunity to be found better online. The other thing too, that a lot of SEO practices are just overall good practices.
Right.
It helps with accessibility. It helps build your authority. Because when people see that you are providing great content, shows that the company is alive and thriving. I mean, like there are so many added benefits, even just beyond SEO, by following best SEO practices, that it's something that every company should be doing at a certain level. Now, there's some companies that, just go direct, or they're just completely old school trade shows. Um,
But even
Nobody's necessarily looking online, but even so, you still should have a good online presence. That's where things are shifting. Like it's 2023, right?
well, suppose we're having a dinner and we talk about a company, but you don't. Afterwards, it's 8 o'clock at night, and you're thinking, "Oh, I should look up that company. What was the name of that company? I can't remember." Oh, Garth mentioned that it was, they did X, Y, and Z in such and such an area. So you're just gonna, not remembering the name, you're gonna search for that service for that type of company in that city, province, state, wherever. And so even that is the important way to have baseline SEO in place so that people can find you when it's all about, unless you're Nike or Apple, like you don't have brand recognition at the top of mind for every single, basically every person on the planet, right?
Yeah.
And so, and the only reason those companies do is they've spent millions of dollars and built a reputation and a following with their brand over decades. So, you need to have something in place, because basically your front door of your business is what your website is online.
Okay.
And a follow-up on that, when it comes to websites, you guys deal a lot with websites and making sure they look great, making sure the SEO is right, making sure they're the right website for those people. How, when you first go on a website, what are the first telltale signs that either the website is good or it's not good?
Well, there's a few things. So, I mean, we're looking at things through different lenses. Number one, I mean, it has to be technically sound. Does the website load quickly? Does it actually work properly? When you click on a button, does it actually go to the page or the document that you're expecting to go to? Then there's other things. Is it branded well? Is it visually pleasing? So, I mean, there's a lot of things, and it all has to work together cohesively for the end user to have an experience. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of organizations and companies make is they build a website built on pride. They do it the way that they like it, or it's tailored to their industry, instead of thinking of what does the end user want? What is the end user's experience that they're looking for? What is useful for them? And also, the messaging has to, accommodate people that are at different levels of their journey, whether that's going through a sales funnel or making a specific decision. And so, there's a lot of thought that needs to really be put into, a good website. It's not, you can have the most beautiful website in the world, but if it doesn't load quickly, you're going to have people that are going to, click back and go to a competitor site or go somewhere else or just be frustrated. Like, you don't want people to be frustrated when they land on your website. You want them to have a good experience. It's like, inviting someone, into your business or into your home. Like, they come in and they're frustrated and it's confusing and, it's just not inviting. So, yeah, there's a whole slew of different things that, you need to accommodate for your visitors online.
Well, we hear all the time, people will say, "Well, I just want something really simple like Apple." And so it shouldn't cost much. And it's like, do you know how much money Apple invests in their website to make it simple and make it easy for people to navigate and find stuff? Like, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars that they pump into their website because it is their front door online. And to get that, some of it is, as a marketing agency, we look at a website, we have our own personal opinions of things, and we go, okay, this looks good or this does not look good. But then we test ourselves by putting heat mapping software on a website and analyzing the user journey, because how we think it is and how the actual consumer, the target customer, is actually using your website, we won't know that until we watch repeated recordings. So the software we have allows us to actually literally record the visitor as they're moving through your website. So you can watch their mouse move. So you have the opportunity through that process to see, are they reading this stuff? And then we get to watch what they're clicking on. And so then you get to see, are the calls to action working? Are they walking through and moving through a smooth journey? Or is there frustration that's evident in clicking back and forth to places looking for something that they're not finding? And so when we do an assessment, part of the user experience assessment is just figuring out like where are the gaps in your website where we can see here's numerous recordings that are showing frustration or confusion, or it appears they're looking for X piece of information. They're never finding it because it's not there, right? So you need to build that out because clearly people are looking for something, they're not finding it, and then they're leaving in frustration. Once they leave, they may never come back.
And then beyond all that, there's content.
Yeah.
Content is king, and this isn't necessarily based on data, but I would rather see like super plain website with good content geared towards the user than horrible content. Like the content needs to be really well thought out, needs to be crafted with everything in mind, from your customer avatars to the stage of the buying cycle that they're in. If you have multiple customer avatars and you need to accommodate that as well, like the content is probably the largest issue that we see with a lot of websites. A lot of websites are built on good platforms. They are visually pleasing, and the content is absolute garbage. It just does not communicate. And a lot of times too, the saddest thing to see is a great company that has a website with horrible content that doesn't represent their brand well and or their company's culture. It's really disappointing. When you connect with a great company and you go to the website and you're like this, like I feel completely let down, right? So yeah.
Do you think something that we find kind of funny about our industry, like video production companies, let's say, is it seems like the more established and higher ranking the production company, the worse the website.
Yes.
Yeah.
The more like
obscure sometimes.
Yeah,
like where there was one the other day that we were looking at, and it had their videos, but the videos were like, instead of how usually like you scroll down and you look at the videos, you scroll to the side. Mm-hmm. And it's not just a line. It's kind of goes from here to here to here to here. And it's just like, you're like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. I know there's videos. I don't know why they're like this. I don't know why it's like that. But you're like, but they probably make a lot of money because all their videos are massive, right? They do it for big clients.
Yep.
And I think the bigger companies sometimes just get kind of lazy and or complacent, right? They're like, well, they don't attest as much value to their website as they probably should, or they get so busy that they basically don't pay the attention to it that they could or should, and as a result, it kind of it's like a house that isn't looked after. It gets either first dirty and messy, and then it gets in a state of disrepair or dysfunction, and so it's a similar sort of thing, and I think it just yields out of, well, we don't need our website to do that. But what people often forget is when people are experiencing you or discovering you for the first time, that's the first impression.
Yeah.
And so and that's branding, right? What do people think about you when they discover you or when they meet you for the first time? It happens in real life when you meet someone face to face, how they talk, how they smile, their mood, their attitude, what they wear, all that stuff makes small psychological impressions in your mind, and your website does the same thing. And I would say the more established you are, the more important it is to continue to build and solidify your brand through that first impression, even if it's people who already know who you are. The messier it gets or the more confusing it is, it just leaves an impression like you don't care. And who do they think you don't care about? You don't care about them.
Right. So, I mean, speaking about the branding aspect of things, like something that I've been kind of following lately and been a little bit intrigued by is like, I feel like in today's world, a large aspect of branding, like I've really noticed this since COVID happened, is like tied to rather than just like your product or like the service you might offer, it's your I don't know the best way to put it, but like it's like your
Like
ethos, your morality, your
like who you are as a company more than your product. Like people buy now things because the company is green or the company does this.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what product they actually sell. It's who they are as people and who they are as a company.
Yeah.
so like something I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but like we all, I don't know if you saw what happened with Budweiser with the
Oh,
Bud
yeah.
Light thing, and they've lost, I think they're like $7 billion now down, and like stuff like that. Like how do you think brands should navigate situations like that? Do you think because clearly consumers care about things, but it's so polarizing that like I don't know, it just seems like such a difficult thing to navigate.
Well, again, this comes back to understanding who your customer actually is. Like, yes, every company has certain responsibilities, and they have to respect culture, and like I'm not saying don't do that, but at the end of the day, when you're making big decisions, you need to know who your actual target customer is. You need to tailor, or you should be tailoring most things to them, right? But at the end of the day, like the Budweiser thing, a lot of this stuff I think too is blown up big time in the media, right?
Right.
Like, yes, their sales are down. I do think that they made potentially a mistake. I mean, time will tell. Um, I've never drank Bud Light, but it sounds like it's pretty crappy beer, anyways. Potentially, you know,
This episode is sponsored by.
yeah. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
months ago, like there's other brands that change stuff too, and people get all in an uproar about it, but then they still go and they still buy it, right? But at the end of the day, I think a lot of these things could potentially be avoided by saying like, who's our target customer? Let's go after the target customer. It's instead of what we think we should potentially do, right? And again, I'm not supporting or not supporting what they did, but yeah, it's if you're tailoring things to your target customer, you are like as an organization, you're serving your customer. You're not serving yourself. Like we're serving our clients, and so we're doing what's best for our clients, and we're communicating, in a way that our clients understand what we're offering or how we're trying to help them, right? And that's where I think a lot of brands right now are getting off on the like, well, this is what we should do, and it's like, but that's not like who you are. That's
Yeah.
not necessarily a wrong thing, but it could be wrong for your business, you know? Like just because something's right, it doesn't mean that it's the right thing for you to do. Not that I'm saying that you should be doing something that's wrong. I'm not saying that, but you know, there was a wise business person that told me like, there's always lots of options ahead, in front of you, and those options are not necessarily bad options, but you still have to, figure out which one is the best for you and your business, right?
Yeah, it's like I guess maybe the subjective moral value of a brand positioning doesn't, like, whether you do it or don't do it doesn't necessarily equate to you making a good or bad decision
Yeah, but
for, like, in terms of morality,
yeah,
but it could be good or bad for your business.
that's right.
Yeah.
But and too, like, speaking from a morality perspective, I mean, there's obviously things that you should not do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You should be a decent human being and
Yeah.
be loving and kind to every person, right? Okay. But, you still need to focus on your target audience. You don't want to set your target audience on fire, right? Like you need to have some common sense there, and this is a great example of challenges in marketing, right?
Mm.
Because yes, you have to do what's right, but you're also tailoring that message towards your target audience, and keeping everyone in mind, but then understanding you don't sell to everybody at the same time. But one of our clients actually, their target audience was we discovered things that were very important to them were, sustainability, green energy. And this company was actually had some of those things like that's what they were practicing. Like they were already doing that. And so we actually suggested to them, we said, listen, all your competitors are touting, that they're, carbon neutral and stuff like that because they were buying, credits from green energy and things like that. And I'm like, you guys are, they weren't doing exactly that, but I'm like, you guys are doing all these other things, but you're not communicating that to your target audience. And that was one of our suggestions. Like, you need to have a page on your site about sustainability and all the things that you do have in practice so that these people, because it is very, because Eli, what you were saying, like, as a company, if you can align with what's important at the core of of what people are focusing on right now, if you can align your business and communicate that, then that's 100% you need to do it. But so many businesses are not doing that right now, and it's really too bad.
And actually, going on top of that, when it comes to marketing agencies, I know there's, of course, just like in any industry, there's a lot of good ones, there's a lot of bad ones, there's a lot of ones that probably don't really, that are okay. Like, what separates a marketing agency from being okay to great? Because again, it's like for anything bad you see in the media, it was probably done by a marketing agency, and it was their whole idea of creating that, right? So what, in your opinion, makes a good and great marketing agency?
I guess all marketing agencies have some greatness in them, and it's just a matter of whether their experience can take them to a place of higher ground. So, but all marketing agencies have deficiency, right? So, I I don't want to speak for others because like the spectrum of marketing people, web people, designers, like this whole industry has a breadth to it, from Billy working in his basement to the biggest agency based out of the largest city in the nation and with 500 employees, right? Like so the scope of it, um, just because that agency has 500 people doesn't mean it's necessarily great. It may be great in size and capacity, but maybe it's not necessarily great in specialization. So I'll speak for ourselves. Like we both started in our basement individually. So it was me as my own company with a bunch of subcontractors, Garth with his company, bunch of subcontractors. In fact, Garth was one of my subcontractors. So that's how we kind of built the relationship to go from being two individual businesses to bringing our strengths together to make us better, right? But in the beginning, with BeResponsive, we decided we were just going to try to be. We didn't. I mean, I have a degree in marketing. I've got all these years of corporate experience doing marketing, but there's a big difference between doing marketing and running a business. It's a lot harder than anybody ever imagines, right? And so at first it was like, well, we're building a marketing agency, so we're going to be all things to all people. Well, the reality is we could not be all things to all people, and no agency can be all things to all people. So where I'm going for here is, a number of years ago, we decided we were going to specialize in a particular type of marketing, so digital specifically. Does that mean we can't do a billboard? Does that mean we can't do a TV commercial or radio ad? No, we can do that stuff, but we don't promote that's what we do. It's not our strongest competency. Like, so if we needed video work, what do? We would hire you guys and outsource it, right? Or we just pass it on to you, and it's your opportunity, because that's not our greatest competency. We have all the gear. We can do video. We did video. But we decided, no, let's focus on digital and data and strategy and all the things around that, using your website as your hub, getting the data to assess your industry, and then driving leads digitally. And that doesn't mean that you're still not bringing in what a company's doing traditionally through trade shows or TV ads or whatever, right? So, but focusing on the digital. And so we decided that was our greatest area of expertise, interest, and competency, and so we wanted to build that up. And so that's what we promote as, and that's what makes us great, is that we focused on that. And we also then decided to focus specifically on three sectors. so that we could become specialists in those sectors. Again, if some company came and they sold tennis balls, could we help them? Yeah, we absolutely could do that. And we would have that conversation. But we're not out looking for companies that sell tennis balls, right? So we're looking for the 3 sectors that we specialize in. And as other referrals or leads come in that are through SEO, then yes, we entertain that and we wouldn't turn them away necessarily. But our greatest expertise is in our areas of specialization. So the conclusion of that is the more specialized you become in the service you offer and the audience or sector or market you target makes you great.
So, what would you say to a company like a Publicis? Do you know Publicis? Yeah, like they've got 70,000 employees. Like that number, it boggles my mind. First of all, but like it's hard for me to imagine what 70,000 people do at a marketing agency. I mean, maybe you guys could know a little bit more than we do, but like clearly you can't, I mean, maybe you have different sectors that specialize in different things, but like what do you think grows a company to that size? I mean, clearly they've gotten some sort of results if they've been able to.
Oh yeah, no, they can.
But I feel like, I don't know, it's interesting because the conversations that I've had with some people is like they're not a fan of the way that they do things over there. So it's like,
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for them, but
Yeah.
we have worked alongside of or been pulled into to different jobs with larger agencies. And most of the time, it's been a bit of a gong show, if I'm going to be completely honest. There was this one company, marketing agency that was out west that was doing work for a company that I was kind of also working with. And it was an SEO job. And their SEO specialists, it was shameful what they were doing and how. And it's not that they didn't know, it's just that there was so much waste and overhead and so many people on every single Zoom call that you were on, and it was just crazy. And it was almost like there was so many people involved, they didn't know, like, well, who was supposed to take the lead on this. And so I to also add on, I agree with everything that David said, but I think a lot of marketing agencies, what separates, the mediocre ones from the great ones, I would say is one thing is project management, internal processes, and their approach to strategy. Because a lot of marketing agencies, again, I love to say this because I think it's so true, a lot of stuff that they build is built on pride. They're not being led by data. They're not being led by necessarily what that target client is looking for. They're just saying, like, this beautiful, flashy thing, this would be perfect for them. And it's like, well, would it really be perfect for them? I forget if it was you Ben, or you, Ilya, talking about, that beautiful website of that large corporation, and you're scrolling down, and you're going sideways. Things like that. Like, I think that's cool.
yeah.
And some developers think that's a lot of fun to develop, but the end user, they're like, what's happening? They don't even understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Right? So again, that would be something like, if we did that, that would be a pride move. That would be like, look how cool this is.
Yeah.
And then people get on the website and they're like, how do I scroll down? It's going the wrong way.
Yeah.
And they're frustrated. And this is where, like David was talking about, like looking at heat maps. Sometimes you look at heat maps of some sites and you get to some sort of, funky design or some, cool thing that was done. And people are just like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
You could, like, oh, you can't hear them. You could just see the mouse scrolling around, but they're just like, what's going on? So again, it all comes back to, your target client. Like, you are serving them. And like a big, huge agency, in my mind, like 70,000 people, and coordinating that, like, I know there's ways through, different management structures that can be managed, but that would just be a complete and absolute nightmare.
Yeah, bigger is not always better. And a company that's gotten any company that's gotten to that size has just gotten there because they've scaled, right? So they've had an influx of money that they've decided we're going to dominate in this way, and you can't hire 70,000 experts, right? So you end up with people who have experience or training in a particular area, but they're not necessarily experts, nor do they have the same kind of ownership as if you have a smaller firm. Now, a smaller firm, like I'm not saying ours is perfect either, right? So if you have less than 10 people, you have a collection of people who are very motivated and focused on a particular type of marketing. And so when companies come to us and they say, well, we want to do this, and we'll be very transparent and say, well, that's not really our area of expertise. You've got two options. You can find a secondary partner that can do that, or we can find one for you. We know some companies, and either you can work directly with them, or we'll bring them in under our team for your project, right? We don't try to be all things because we can't with 10 people. You can't, you just can't. But at the same scope, you can't be all things to people even with 70,000 people because you just don't have that many people that are that committed. Then for a lot of them, it's just a job. And
Yeah.
it's really not a part of the mission to, like in our case, like we're really trying to build a culture in our team where we're here to build something and serve our customers first, but at the same time build something for all of us to accomplish the things that we value in life and that we want more of in life. And it's not always more money. Like money is part of it, but more of certain things. My wife and I, we want more time so that we can travel, right? Other people in our team want more time so they can spend it with their growing family, right? So everybody individual as an employee has a bunch of different reasons why they work, and it's not just money, and it's not just to get career experience. It's more holistic than that. And with 70,000 people, like I worked in a big company before I came to BeResponsive, worked with one of Canada's largest companies, and it had its benefits, but it had a lot of chaos, and to your point, tons of waste, and even with process, it was like there was just so many layers of management and so much redundancy, and yet so much incompetence.
Yeah.
Do you think that will, because I feel like at any stage there's always, like, of course the big companies they'll always be big, they'll always have the big clients, and there's always going to be a company on the come up who is then going to be like, oh, like the process that they have is redundant, it doesn't make sense, I have a better way of doing it. And then potentially they grow to be a little bigger, and then somebody else comes up and they're like, oh, the process that they do is now redundant, let me try this and that. Do you think that will always be the case? Like, do you think at some point we'll figure out a way of like for example, any big company, there's always so much redundancy, and no matter how you look at it, like it just cannot run perfectly, right? Do you think there was ever going to be a time where there will be there just will not be as much redundancy, and the people that are coming up will not have as much leeway to be like, oh, like now you have to maybe invent something new instead of fix something that's already there?
Well, I think how I would answer that is a lot of companies stop innovating. You always have to be innovating, and you cannot get complacent where you're at. And I think a lot of larger corporations, they kind of fall into that trap where they have a process that worked or is working. And it's not that they're necessarily turning into like a one-trick pony, but they're just executing what has worked or what does work. And then, as David said, as they're scaling, then there's a bunch of bloat. But as an organization, you always need to be looking for ways to innovate. You need to be testing out new things. So like in our industry right now, there's a lot of AI stuff that that we're testing. To put that in perspective with a larger corporation, maybe that larger corporation said like, oh no, we're never going to touch that. We're just going to keep doing things this old school method, and just kind of leave that behind. And so that's the advantage though too, I think, of smaller companies, is that we have to innovate to be as competitive as we can be, to go up against some of these larger Goliath corporations. But yeah, at the end of the day, once you stop innovating, eventually things are going to go downhill.
Well, and the flip side, sorry to interrupt, but the flip side of that is leadership. The bigger the
Yeah.
company, the harder it is to get good quality leaders. People get put into leadership positions just because they've been there a long time, or because a friend of theirs. I've watched this happen so much in the corporate circle, right? Some new president comes in, or a new VP comes in, and they clean house a little bit and dust out people that where they see incompetence, and they go, oh, well, I came from such and such a company or industry. I'm going to bring over my friends. And there's a lot of that happens, and that isn't healthy because it screws up the culture of the organization. And I think a lot of the bigger the company gets, like small companies, culture is important, leadership is important. The bigger the company gets, the more the culture, protecting the culture, forming the culture, and not just for the sake of saying you are developing a company culture, but and it all rises and falls on leadership. And most of the big companies, they really their redundancy, their bloat, their misdirection, all that stuff. Even the lack of innovation comes from a lack of vision from leadership.
Interesting.
And also, too, diversity of thought. A lot of business leaders and managers want to surround themselves with people that are like them.
Yeah.
Create like an echo chamber.
Yeah,
basically.
and so it's just a whole bunch of people saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,"
Yeah.
you know, a bunch of yes people, right?
Yeah.
But you really need to surround yourself with people. I don't want to say that make you feel uncomfortable, but have diversity of thought and are going to challenge you. Say, no, that's what like what are you talking about? Why are you saying you know like it Dave and I are really blessed because there's, you know, our team is not afraid to speak out and, you know, to have diversity of thought and say, no, that's like, why don't we do it this way? And, you know, sometimes I'll say, you know, as co-owner of the business, you know, sometimes people will say something and, you know, sometimes it's like a little dagger. It's like, oh, but that was my idea. But you've got to let it go. You've got to say, no, it's not about me. It's about, again, serving our clients, doing what's best, and also, you know, too, serving the company, doing what's best for the company.
Well, the human nature characteristic that gets in the way of that is pride. So
Yeah.
the flip side of that is humility. So how much humility do you have to say, even though that is my idea and that is what I want, is that what is best first for the customer and then for the corporate team? And to have enough self-awareness to pull back and reassess on your own, is so healthy for the culture of the company, but so healthy for the you know the clients too, because then what they get is they get an open-mindedness that they don't get in a lot of business cycles, because there's a lot of yes to the boss, and I'd rather have pushback. And then it doesn't mean that all pushback I take and go, yeah, you're right. I'm not always going, yeah, you're right, yeah, you're right, yeah, you're right. It's like, that's a good point, but in this situation, I still think this is the best path. Now, what's a bonus for me personally, well, for us, is that we have each other as business partners to bounce ideas off of. Like when it was just me, I was trying to bounce ideas off my wife, who's an amazing sounding board, but she's not a business person, right?
Yeah.
And she's interested in the health and growth of the business, but she doesn't live it every day because she's a teacher. So she's in her career. With Garth and I, we operate as a very good sounding board. We're very opposite in our giftings and our strength and our leadership and our experience, and that's so healthy because he brings a perspective that I would never have, and flip side, vice versa. I bring perspectives that he doesn't have, and we have enough humility to not get, you know, defensive when we want to hold our position. We wrestle with some ideas, throw it back and forth, and then figure out the path that we see that seems best at the time. That's not always the right path either, by the way. But you know, then at least we can say, well, we wrestled with this together. We went down this road, and now we see actually it's not the right road. So now we have to stop again, reassess, and move. And most leaders have the pride gets in the way, and the bigger the corporation, the higher the position, the more pride gets set and interwoven into that leader's operational process.
Yeah.
Is my experience.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, well, I mean, we would say the same thing. Like, Eli is a lot more analytical than I am, and I think that's like a great benefit.
Nice.
Garth, I would assume you're a little more analytical than
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, no, it's definitely it's great because like, well, one thing I will say, talking about like not getting defensive necessarily and stuff like that. I mean, I would say both of us definitely do get defensive at times about an idea that we have or something like that. But what I think is great is that both of us, regardless of how in the moment you feel about your idea, like you can take it and think about like, okay, why did they say that? Like, what is the actual solution? Why am I thinking that they're wrong? Is it just because I'm prideful, or is it because like there's an actual difference of opinion that's not just based on like my feelings? Uh,
And even at times, it's like, I mean, we've had it so many times where we might not agree with the idea, but it's the right way to go about whatever is happening.
Yeah.
Like, for example, we had a project recently, and we were supposed to be shooting 2 commercials, and we ended up only being able to shoot one just because, like, some location, and like we had some problems with one of the locations, and we were like, okay, like we can still probably shoot both, but one might not be as good. But it's like we already put in the time. We came up with the idea. We got everybody to come out, and it was about like a week and a half before the commercial. So it was us having to choose. Okay, do we do 2 commercials that are one might not be as good, or do we just choose to drop one commercial that we've been working on for a month and a half and just do one? And it's always one of those decisions where you're like, I hate where this is going, but this is the right way to go about it. And there's just like that's just what it is. And we even have it all the time with ideas too. It's like, oh, like I might not like your idea of how we should, let's say this or phrase that on a website, but it's like that's probably the right thing to do.
yeah, definitely. When it comes to you guys were talking a little bit about like innovating and stuff. I'd be curious where you guys see the future of the marketing industry going over the next like decade. I know you mentioned AI, that's probably going to be a big part of it, but are there any other shifts and changes that you're foreseeing or that you've started to see develop?
Well, it's interesting you ask that question. Um, Obviously, the hot thing right now is AI.
Yeah.
And so, just to address that elephant in the room, it is an amazingly powerful tool, but it is a tool. Is it going to replace some, entry level copywriting positions? Likely, yes. You know what? The AI can likely or does write better than some entry level writers. But what it's not going to do is it's not going to replace experienced folks that are now primarily going to be doing fact checking because the AI is all not always wrong. I shouldn't say always. It's not always wrong, but it is often wrong. Or you may have this beautiful 1,500 word article that you've got it to spit out, but there's one paragraph and it's like that is not that's not right. So now you have to have somebody that, yes, they didn't write this article, but they need to know enough about the topic and still research the topic enough to know that's wrong. Okay. So for instance, we had used Chat GPT to research an article for one of our clients, and it was for doing installation of flooring actually, and um, there was one part where it was like it was so wrong if people would have followed these instructions because we had the whole body of the article already planned out, but we were using it again for research. Okay, so but one section was so wrong, if people would have followed the instructions it could have caused harm. Okay, it was that wrong.
Oh,
But what was amazing is when we corrected it, I couldn't believe how accurate it was when we corrected it. When we said, no, change it to do this and also change this, and those paragraphs that spit back out, I was like, I was blown away. I was blown away by how, like, and again, like the AI, what it spits out in the beginning is mediocre. But when you keep, giving it feedback, then that's when it can give you something phenomenal. But the issue is that you need to know what to tell it for it to spit that back out. So yes, it's going to save time. Yes, it's going to keep getting better as we, all the lemmings, are training it around the world all the time. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's been seeded and everything, but we're the ones now that are making it better. Um, yeah. So AI, yes, it's a big thing, but also I think, especially COVID. So through that whole time period, a lot of stuff switched online, but now I think people have a hunger for in person. Because I think a lot of people now are saying, wait a second, like, it's kind of like when things opened back up and everyone just went crazy traveling. I believe, again, I don't have data for this yet, but that a lot of the in-person stuff and even some of the in-person retail and maybe some of the more niche and boutique things are going to be more, in person. And so that's going to require, the continuance and, maybe even upping, your game on some of the more traditional marketing pieces, right? So yes, everything we are, first and foremost a digital marketing agency. So yes, 100% digital, but the in-person stuff is not going away. May not be the same volume that there used to be, but I think it's going to be more niche, more boutique, more specialized, and yeah, which is going to require more effort, right? To really stand out, because that in person, boutique retail stuff, there's going to be, you're going to have to really rise up a few levels to, be, in one of the top positions.
Yeah, I'm being asked like about AI every week by potential customers and or clients. And everybody kind of starts out with they're either this is so cool or they're like, aren't you afraid that this is going to wipe out marketing? And I'm like, no, like this is actually a very exciting time. Just like as social media came in years ago and has evolved, it's become a useful tool for marketing. As things went from being super analog, in the 60s, 70s into more computer based in 80s, 90s, 2000s. Now you've got the evolution of AI. What this actually does is for those who want to innovate and want to stay on the cutting edge of what's happening, it's an incredibly exciting time. And who knows where the AI is really going to go, but where we're at today and for the foreseeable future, the marketing companies or marketing in general, where it's going to thrive is where people bring in a very good strategic perspective of taking what comes out of AI or what comes out of technology or what comes out of social or digital and figures out creativity or uses creativity to build it out in a very unique way to express the story of the business, to express the story of the products or services and differentiation of how it's different than the competitor, and then tells the story of how this is the best solution for the customer. And so marketing is just essentially all about telling a story, and the tools just help you do that in different ways. You still need some person with a strategic creative or a team of people with strategy and creativity to take that story, utilize the tools of the day and the ways of disseminating that, whether it's through a phone or through social or through a billboard, and find ways to connect with that target customer and show them that this is your problem and here's the solution, or or reach into that. If it's a consumer thing, reach that place inside where it drives that, oh, I like that, or I want that. If it's B2B, it's more of, oh, that's my problem. Here's the solution. Finally, a solution. I got to look into this. If this is true, this is great, right? And so those are the emotions that you're trying to drive. So you got the tools, you got the strategy, and you got the emotions to try to pull it all together to bring somebody from discovering you to embracing who you are and your product or service. So it's fantastic, and it'll always evolve along that same spectrum, regardless of tools and technology.
And digital wise, I think what's going to separate a lot of people online, see, because now a lot of people are going to be able to spit out a lot of content right now, right?
Yeah.
But as David was saying, the storytelling aspect, but also, it just being authentic and people knowing that it's an actual human. Now, again, there's some pretty cool AI video tools too for the talking heads. But for instance, like a podcast like this, like you can't fake this. Like we have like this is, we're being recorded. It's going to be in video. It can be in audio format. It can be transcribed. But, people that are cranking out, video content along with the written content, people are going, like, ultimately, people connect with people,
Yeah.
right? So if you have this faceless website that has a bunch of, like, what seems to be authoritative content, people are going to connect with a website that has a face or faces associated with it. And also too, like the culture, like we've had clients connect with us because they said, like, we really like your company culture. In fact, some people that we've hired there, they were like, you know what separated you from the rest was your company culture. It looks like you care about the members of your team. You guys have Cheese Friday. You like to go out for dinners and stuff. In fact, today we just went out for a great birthday dinner. It was one of our employees' birthday. But like we love to celebrate the team because it's not just David and I. Like a lot of organizations, that's the way they are. It's like everyone's worshiping the boss. Like, no, like it's a team. And I know I've said multiple times now, yes, you're serving your clients, and that's 100% true. But as business owners, we're also serving our employees. They're not just there, to serve the business. We're there, also to serve them. Um,
So
so yeah,
what is Cheese Fridays?
Yeah.
Cheese Friday is when we get
Please.
cheesy. No, so
Yeah, gee.
yeah, we like to have like a bunch of different specialty cheeses that we cut up, and sometimes
Interesting. Do you have any
different
favorite cheeses?
Oh, so many.
Do you guys usually like do different cheeses every time, or do you have favorites?
Yeah, we try to spread it out a little bit. It kind of started kind of organically. One Friday, one of the employees brought in cheese enough for everybody to share. So and everybody liked it.
Yep.
That it was like, oh, we should do this every week. And it was kind of a joke. And then somebody brought it in the next week, and then we started buying cheese and keeping it in the fridge. And sometimes it's cheese, sometimes it's meat, sometimes it's fruit, sometimes it's not. There's no cheese at all. But we still call it Cheese Friday. And it's usually around 2:30 in the afternoon. And we just take a time out, and everybody gathers in our common area, and we have time to just decompress and talk about nothing to do with business. It's usually, so what are you doing this weekend, or things like that. And yeah, it's just a way to, it's just kind of evolved into this really cool way of just ending the week on a high note with some social. And it's not something that goes on for hours. It's like half an hour, 45 minutes. Everybody's happy, and they've had a break and a little bit of cheese.
So what you're saying is we cut into Cheese Fridays today.
Today we're missing Cheese Friday.
Fridays,
Yes.
yeah.
In fact, it's Cheesecake Friday today.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And so there's a cheesecake back at the office for each of us. So, after this, maybe we should just all go back there and have more cheesecake.
A little,
Yep.
little cheesecake.
Still has cheese in it though,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
still authentic.
It still
Yeah,
counts.
So-
still counts.
Actually, I'd be very curious because I mean, again, it's like I'm sure you guys get it all the time. Search engine optimization, like what does it mean, all that stuff, and just in general, I feel like marketing for a lot of people when they're not in it, it's extremely confusing because you're just selling, but how does any of this work? What do you think is the most challenging part of your job?
That's a really good question.
That is a good question.
I think the most challenging part of my job is communicating what we're doing to our clients at a level that they understanding without overcomplicating things. Ultimately what we're trying to do is we're trying to help people not be invisible on, when people are searching organically so that they can be found. But there's so many aspects of that, from, optimizing your website. I mean, it could be optimizing, your Google business profile. Like there's so many different things that you have to do, but a lot of people don't understand it. They don't need to understand it, but when you're showing them results and giving them a strategy, that education portion I think is probably the most difficult, at least for myself.
Yeah, and on the selling side, so I'm probably more the business development side and working alongside our sales guy to, connect with new customers, and it's just trying to help, because when people hear SEO, they either are, I don't even know what that means, to they have a misperception of what it is. Most people really do not understand what it is at all, and so at the base, it's just like taking your website and your products and services from being invisible online to being visible online, and so you're found by the types of customers that are looking for those products or services. The technicality of it, I think what makes it so darn hard is that Google keeps changing the rules all the time, and there's just so many moving parts, and so part of it is just like communicating what it is and how it's evolving and why it's so important to our team, trying to stay on top of all the things that are changing. And it comes back to analyzing the data for clients on a monthly basis and watching for when things plateau or start falling off, and trying to figure out, well, what's happening here and what's a solution to, a client gets to the third position on the first page, and they're there and they're in position 2, 3, 4 for a month, 2, 3, 4 months, and then all of a sudden they're down in position 9, and then they're position 13, so now they're on the second page. Why is that happening? And they're frustrated, and we're a little bit frustrated because, like, why is this happening, right? And you have to explain it, and then you have to try to find a pathway to how do we fix it. And I think that's the hardest thing, is trying to figure out what happened here. Like, we got them there, and now it's starting to fall off. And there's usually an explanation, but then sometimes there's not, and it's just the craziness of Google, of things. There's no stability. It's constantly moving. But most companies on the SEO front or on the digital marketing front, they don't do a really good job of monitoring that and being very transparent with the client. Like, I don't like having a meeting. Like, we're just finishing up, monthly meetings with clients. And so it's always the two of us are involved in some way. I hate presenting a report going, okay, so this month actually doesn't look great. For this, you fell back 5 positions. For this is down 7 positions. These ones are now off the first page. But there's hope, right? And I'd rather be transparent and tell them the truth.
Yeah.
Than try to try to sweep that under the carpet and hope it goes away or hope it improves. Right. And sadly, people don't like delivering bad news. So a lot of companies will sweep it under the carpet and hope it goes away and improves. And often that doesn't happen. If you don't figure out a pathway, and this is what Garth and the team are so good at doing, is doing that detective work and trying to figure out what is wrong here and how can we fix it, or can we fix it, and then trying different things. And sometimes you try something and it works, and sometimes you try something and it doesn't work. It actually gets worse. And so there's the end conclusion to what's so hard about it is that it's constantly in flux and constantly changing. And
how do you keep up with that? Because I feel like there's so many things to it, especially because, again, it's like you can look at just websites, you can look at just Google changing things, you can look at, there's just so many, like Facebook could change things, LinkedIn could change things. How do you stay on top of all of that?
But before you answer that, I just wanted to ask one brief question, because this is gonna go into a whole another tangent.
Okay.
But I was just gonna quickly ask, like, you mentioned that it's the most difficult part for you is like being able to explain to the client something in a simplistic way so that they can understand. How do you balance that? Like, one thing that we've had trouble with is like balancing that with also getting them to understand how much work it actually is.
Yeah, in fact, I was thinking about that too when David was speaking, and I don't really have a concrete answer for that, because that's a magic question.
Do you think it depends on the client?
It does depend on the client, and which also makes things more difficult, because for each client you're communicating in a different way, because each client has a different technical competency. Each client has a different interest in analytics. Some clients couldn't care less. They just want to know, like, am I beating my competitors? Some clients want to know all the details. And some clients want to like have like meetings about details and details and details. And it's like, listen, we need to focus the budget not on project management, and, put this towards, ad spend and optimizing and writing new content. But
the barrier is trust, right? Like, so the clients that trust your expertise and know that, I use the analogy of of gardening, because I'm a gardener, right? It's about planting seeds. You plant seeds, and it takes, some seeds take longer than others to germinate. Like I plant hot pepper seeds, and it takes 3 to 4 weeks for the thing to even germinate. You plant some other seeds, and they germinate in 3 days, right? You also plant some things, and they get too close together, and you have to be brutal and prune some of them. Okay, well, these two are too close. This one looks a little healthier than the other one. I'm going to snip that one off and kill it, right? And so it's all about process and patience, and in the end, like the clients that totally trust that you have a process and they can see it's working, and they know they know what you're doing, and they let it go. It works better than those who want to have all the details and try to understand it when they really don't have the technical competency to understand it, and or they just have plain trust issues. Like, and there are many leaders that have trust issues. They want to control it all, and they think they know it all, and they just don't, and they won't let go. And those clients are harder to work with for sure. And I would say in some situations, the relationship just can't have a long-term partnership because they just can't let go.
Is that a problem you struggled with when you first started the business? When you started hiring employees and being able to give people the ability to do things that you would have done otherwise, and trusting people?
It's a great question.
No, it is hard, and in fact, I'm still, number one, I'm a recovering perfectionist, and yeah, I'm getting way better at delegating things, but I do like my standards are so high that there is that level of probably I do look like an absolute control freak because I monitor a lot of stuff, right? So yeah, it's just something that through counseling and experience, over time, that you know what I mean. Whatever works for you, that you like you do just have to you have to let it go.
Well, you can't grow if you don't let go.
In fact, it's on our.
Well, that's a great motto right there.
It's on our 90-day plan. One of the things we're supposed to do is just talking about for leadership is like to let it go.
Yeah.
But yeah, and two, everyone's at a different level of knowledge. Everyone looks at things differently. As I said earlier, like diversity of thought. So like each member of our team is analyzing things differently. And so I can't look at, what someone's doing or even, I don't want to say the procedure, because I mean, a procedure is a procedure for the most part, but, what's going to make it click for somebody else in the team is not necessarily what makes it click for me. And so it's also, giving grace for people to, use more time, for something that might take me half an hour, it might take someone else a couple hours to, kind of figure out. But, over time, as you're working alongside people, and they gain more experience, it gets smoother and smoother. And, right now, I think we have an absolutely fantastic team.
We do.
And yeah, it's absolutely great.
And letting go is, I mean, I kind of poke at him that he has a harder time letting go. But part of it is I'm also 15 years older. So I have had more time to learn how to let go. And I'm also not quite as much of a control freak, and I'm not quite as much of a perfectionist. It's not that I'm not those things. I do have control issues, as everybody does, and I do have perfectionistic tendencies on certain things, but I can let go a little quicker. So in the transition, as we've grown, I mean, the staff sees it too, that he has a harder time letting go, but that's part of Garth's growth. I had to go through that too, and I just think I've come to the point that if I don't let go, I'm just going to burn out because I can't get everything my way, and I don't necessarily want it all my way, and it doesn't need to always be perfect. Sometimes perfect is the enemy of great, and so if it's good enough, it's just
and I feel like
forward.
yeah.
But at the same time, we want to do the best for our clients. We don't want to. We want to avoid mediocrity at all costs.
But I feel like it also depends on what it is, right? Because like sometimes I know this is like something we faced from the beginning. It's like we're like, okay, everything has to be perfect, and then maybe you look at a song, for example, and you spend 2 days trying to make the one small segment better that only you can hear and nobody else can. And it's like at that point, like to you, that might be like, okay, like I'm settling.
Yeah.
But realistically speaking, it's like nobody else will notice. It doesn't affect anything. It doesn't matter in any way. It's not gonna perform worse because of it. And it's like at that point, definitely something we've also been trying to deal with is like, okay, like when is it time to let go of something that only you are gonna notice and nobody else will?
Well, I try to coach clients on brand. So we're doing logos or especially brand pieces or whatever. The one you can tell right away when they're over analyzing things, and I try really hard to just get them one-on-one and say, listen, you're overthinking this. You're looking at it through your lens, and your customers are never going to see that. They're never going to notice that slight subtle change in blue. Like, it's close enough. Like, if you keep doing this, you're going to drive yourself crazy. And by the way, you're driving us crazy too. So like at a certain point, does it make a good brand impression to the target customer you're going after as it is? And if the answer is yes, it's good enough, then please let's leave it. Because otherwise, we're all going to go. It goes out of scope so quickly. And the answer is no, I want to keep going. Then, okay, but then we're going to have to charge more because we've hit the cap here now. We've overanalyzed this way beyond what we normally would. If you want to go at this for another week or two, sure, we can do that, but it's going to be X amount more because we have hit the threshold. And usually that stops. As soon as money comes into play, they usually, I guess you're right. It's good enough.
Yeah. Well, I think too, like, I mean, I imagine it's the same for you guys. But I think like having one of you who is like more analytical. I mean, I feel like the analytical person's going to be more of a perfectionist.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys
It's my
can-
strength and my weakness.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's both great and like it can be a bit of a weakness at times, and I think it's the same for us when it comes to the opposite of that. So I think it's really learning when is appropriate to let go and when is, and that's what I think is great about us, and I feel like it's great about you guys as well, is that like because you have someone who doesn't think the exact same way, it's like you can kind of teach each other. It's like, okay, now's the time, Ilya, you should probably let go. And then Ilya be like, okay, now Ben, this is a time where I really think we need to make sure this is as like perfect.
We got to press on it.
We got to press on it. It's like learning that kind of push and pull. Yeah. And like that balance, I think is really important.
Yeah, you got to have some compromise too.
Yeah.
It's like I might give up too early, or Garth will push on, and then you just have a conversation. Is this something we must push forward and keep going on? And if you really feel that way, I'm fine with it. But, I'm ready to stop. I think.
And sometimes I have to ask myself, would David notice a difference here? Or would this be something that David would necessarily care about? And if the answer is no, then sometimes I'm like, yeah, that's good enough. Yeah. David representing not just David, but other CEOs and business leaders and different businesses. It's like
yeah. Will the client even notice this?
And that's the thing. It's like you forget. I feel like the biggest thing that you always forget is like, because you're an expert, you're in such a high level that even if you half-ass a job realistically, which is of course doesn't happen, but even if you did, like nobody else will notice. It's like only you will know that you half-ass it. Like for them, that's still, oh my god, you did so much work and this and that. So it's like you always forget that it's like if you are overthinking about a small thing that a client's not going to notice, like at that point, it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, integrity keeps you from doing mediocrity.
Yeah.
But perfection can, like I said before, gets in the way of great as it is. So finding a balance.
So jumping back to Ilya's previous topic.
I don't even remember what that was.
Stay on top of all this?
It was just how do you stay on top of like trends in the marketing world, and do you ever find yourselves on top of that looking at maybe a trend that's currently, let's say a trend that's currently blowing up and thinking to yourself, this isn't great. I think this other way would actually is going to be the future. And then you kind of veer off of what's trending and go your own route.
Good question. I mean, it's an interesting spin on it. Trends are trends, number one. And, it depends on your client. Again, grounding things back to the client. Because, for instance, lots of stuff going on I'm going to pick on TikTok. Okay. Lots of like hilarious content, lots of horrible content, you know, lots of mediocre content there. But that's not necessarily the best thing for every single client. So where we're focusing mostly on B2B clients, TikTok for most of them is not really a great platform, right? It could potentially be if they have the right person, a younger person that's willing to go out and embarrass himself and everyone else and come up with some really crazy ideas. It potentially could. But then there was also a session that Dave and I were watching. This person was speaking mostly on SEO and the value of different social media platforms. So social media versus like SEO and ROI. Okay, and even a lot of large influencers on TikTok and on Instagram, like they say, like we make almost nothing. Like nothing. Like I've got 1 million followers and I make nothing off this platform. Now, I don't want to say that there's not brand awareness there and that's not helping influence other things that they have going on. But like the longer form content is where the real money is. Longer form content on YouTube, longer form content on your website. Like that's where, people have the ability to make advertising dollars and to, seem more authoritative in their sector so that people actually want to connect with them and do business,
And
right?
it's also
So
when you formulate trust because you can't, like in a minute-long video,
that's right.
there's just no way. It's like you maybe you'll be like, oh, like I think they're knowledgeable about what they do, but it's like how much can you really say in a minute and a half?
Yeah. So, 3 years ago, I would have said, let's do short videos. And obviously, there still is a place for short videos, right?
Yeah.
But now the longer form stuff is just absolutely where, the real money and, as you said, the trust building. Like you just can't beat it. Once people are hooked and they've watched that.
Well, and so we don't get lost on it. Your question was, how do we stay on the leading edge of trends? It's really by just reading a lot, watching a lot of video, listening to a lot of podcasts, and experimentation, right? And encouraging the team to do that too, as part of their. So this year we've come out with a training allotment for every employee in time and money, so that they, the whole Chat GPT thing. I was hearing about it when it first came out, but I'm not the one to go investigate it. But the nice part is one of our employees, he drove that. He started to he was just totally intrigued by it. And he wasn't even, his prime role wasn't to write content necessarily, even though he does write some content. So he started playing with it and bringing it in and showing us the value of it. And then we went from the free version to the paid version because it does have merit. And so it's us learning, them learning, and the only way you stay on top is the learning and the experimentation, and then trying to filter out, well, what is on just trendy and what is actually good practice, principle, process, and that we can find ways to utilize for a particular sector or for an individual client.
Are there certain factors that you see that would separate something that's simply a trend versus something that's going to be something that is a long-term factor in the industry?
Good question.
It's full of good questions.
Yeah. I don't want to say that there's like a specific factor. It's something that you need to experiment with, as David was saying. And I mean, we've always experimented on our own business with different things. Okay, like we try to put our money where our mouth is and try things on ourselves first. But yeah, you have to try it out, and you need to let the data kind of drive. Is this actually working? Is it actually making a difference, or is it just cute? Right. And maybe if you have free time and you just want something that's kind of cute, like or and fun, then there's nothing wrong with that. Again, it's not wrong, but is it the right way to spend your budget, or more importantly, your client's budget? Right.
Well, the experimenting and the testing thing goes to the long form content that Garth referenced, right? So we were hearing Google responds better in SEO to long form content. And so then the research was what it started out with articles between 2,000 and 3,000 words. Now it's
Well, at first we were doing stuff around like 1,000, 1,500, and we were seeing good results.
Yeah.
But then we went up to 2,000, 3,000,
and we experimented with our own stuff. So we took some of our blog posts that we had on our site that were like 700-800 words that we'd written 5 years ago, and it's like, well, let's spruce this up, utilizing a little bit of Chat GPT and a little bit of expansion on how our own products and services have evolved in digital brand management. And we redid the whole article as a, I don't know what it was, 3,200 word article. What does the data show that this has an impact on SEO? Well, guess what happened? The SEO started to catapult forward. So then we tried it on something else related to web development, and we tried something else on related to branding. And all those articles, the SEO is starting to leap. So then when I'm having a conversation, or we're having a conversation with a client about, here's why you should consider long form content. We did this, and this is what happened. Let me show you the article. I can show you our results, right? So that they're not thinking we're just making this crap up, that we've actually read it, it appears true, we experiment with it, we've tested it, and it works. So, then they know you're not just telling us to do something that you just think is on trend. You're telling us to do this because it's a leading indicator of a trend, and you've tried it, tested it, and proven it works. So if it works for you, it'll probably work for us. So then you can talk them into it. Then, of course, then there's the whole thing of, oh my God, we can't write 3,000, 4,000 word articles. Can you help us with that? And so, that's kind of expanded to the point where now we have a content writer part-time, because there's just such a need for content.
Yeah.
Above and beyond just everybody thinks, oh, now we've got Chat GPT. It's just easy. It's free. Just boom, boom, boom. It takes away all the work. Well, it doesn't at all.
No, in fact, it complicates things at some levels. But so here's the really cool thing that ChatGPT in particular, or AI, has helped us with, is that instead of us being able to deliver like a 500 to 750 word blog article for a client, we can now deliver, a not just like a article that has a bunch of fluff added onto it, but a very authoritative article that's 2,000 to 3,000 words for almost the same cost, right? Like, you get to a point where an article is so long that for you to even have give your attention to it to proof it, like, you know what I mean? Like it's not necessarily more complex, but it's way more intense, right?
Yeah. Right.
But talking about trends, so we have content strategies for a lot of our clients that we're partnered with, and so this one particular client, we sometimes write articles about trends for like 2023. So we wrote a 2023 trends article for this client, using our keyword research and everything. And that article, so we posted that article in December, and then the end of January, they were #1 Canada-wide for a whole bunch of searches.
Whoa.
And now, this particular client, they are serving the Atlantic region. So you might say, well, okay, so they're Canada-wide #1, but they're also clearly #1 in the Atlantic region, right?
Yeah.
So just the authority that article is helping to drive to that business and their different retail locations, it's just it's amazing. But this is what we're trying to do. This is how we're trying to stay ahead. Is there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of experimentation, and it's not necessarily that you're doing something wrong. It's just we're always looking to how can we improve, and how can we do this better, right?
Well, and when we report to this particular company, it's only Atlantic Canada, but now they're getting traffic from all over Canada. We want to be truthful and transparent, because they look at it and they go, oh my God, look at all the people coming to our website. It's like, yes, but keep in mind, you're attracting people from Calgary and from Vancouver, and you're never going to sell to them.
Right.
So you have a bloat in the number of amount of traffic you're getting. They're reading the article, they're loving the article, but they're never going to buy from you. And so just giving them context to go, yes, you should be excited. We're excited actually as well, but the actual percentage of actually your target customers is not that huge number. It's a smaller portion of it, and we can sometimes narrow that down to, regionally, where is that traffic coming from. But a lot of companies would use that as a way to just go, look how great, like we've seen that with companies that do digital ads. Oh, look at all the clicks you're getting. It's like, yeah, but you're like, these aren't even the right target customers, right? But then the company doesn't know that piece of information, so they think, oh, this company's doing great work for us because look at all the clicks we're getting, look at all the visitors we're getting. You've got to be honest, and that's where our values of integrity and transparency come into play. Is yes, we want to celebrate this is working, but it's not as great as it looks.
Yeah, and honestly, as you guys know, you can basically manipulate anybody with certain statistics.
Yeah.
Which, you know what I mean? And
I didn't know that, Garth.
you didn't know that?
No.
Watch the news lately? What? I just want to give you this little story. So this was this was a larger agency. Not that I'm trying to knock larger agencies, because there's a lot of amazing larger agencies, but larger agency running Google ads for a particular client of ours, who really kind of wasn't a client of ours at the time, but I was involved, and they asked me, can you review this report, because we are spending a lot of money but our sales aren't going up. Like, how can we spend this much money and they're showing that we have this many impressions and this many clicks, but no one's really buying anything? Like, we're spending, like, in put it in perspective, I think it was like 7 to 10 grand or something in a month that they spend. Oof. And like no additional sales. Like this was like, online e-commerce store.
Yeah.
So I looked at the statistics, and these guys even had it. I couldn't believe that they even put this in the report and didn't like address it. They gave the top landing pages that these ads were going to, the URLs. So I copied and pasted the URLs in, and they didn't work. Or they didn't have the products on those specific categories that people were clicking on. Yeah. So people are clicking on XYZ product in the Google ad, and then the page that they land on has ABC product.
No XYZ. And they're like, "Where's this product?" And then they were frustrated and just leave.
Wow. It was brutal. And I'm like, how are they charging you this money? And well, in fact, I only know what the ad spend was. I don't know what the management fee was.
True.
And I was like, this is just robbery. And so this is why, in the marketing industry, another thing that we're up against is that people do not trust marketing companies. Like, oh, I've tried that, and all these companies have, and most of them have been ripped off, and like they have a reason not to trust marketing companies. So I mean, anybody that you're trying to go after, you have to gain trust. But I think in our industry, we have to go the extra mile, to
there's been a lot of people that have been burned, and then once you're burned, then you're super shy, and you're like, I don't know. How are you different from, all these other companies that we've dealt with that have said the same thing and it never worked? And so then you've got a huge mountain to climb. And so usually the best way for us forward is, let's take a baby step. Let's prove to you that we can do this with a low-hanging fruit project. Here's where we see some really quick wins, and we'll show you the data to prove that it works. And once you get that over that first hurdle and they see that it's different, they see the process is different, they see the communication is different, and they see that you're transparent and honest, right? And that you have that integrity, then suddenly that makes the next step and the next step. And once you earn it, then you're good. And then usually they are our best testimonials, because they're like, we've tried this before, it never worked, but these guys actually do it right.
What, just out of curiosity, and I know the number very much depends, but when a client comes to you and they're looking to spend money on ads, what budget do you typically recommend they start with?
Really determines on their goals, but to test things out, I would say somewhere around $30 a day, like to start seeing what kind of results typically get.
And how long would you leave that for?
Typically, depending on how you have the ad set up, and again, most ads right now, a lot of the targeting is heavily reliant on AI.
Right.
Being able to target certain demographics, most advertisers, well, I should say most advertisers, but I'll pick on Meta in particular, because they don't want you to discriminate against certain demographics, which I don't disagree with. But what happens is that people are seeing ads for stuff that they don't even want because you can't target it down to them. So in a way, they're doing the opposite of what they. But anyways, I'll leave that aside. But usually the AI needs a couple of weeks really before you can kind of see like what is working. And then you can kind of refine the budget and either put more into it or go back to the drawing board and figure out, because sometimes it's tough to get your ad. I should say sometimes, almost all the time. It's tough to get the audience correct and get your ad in front of the right people, unless you're a huge company where you've got a pixel that's been running on the site and you've got all kinds of pixel data that you can rely on. So a lot of the companies we're working with, they don't have a whole lot of pixel data. So we have to run campaigns to try to, target people and then, retarget those people or people like those people, like a lookalike audience for people that have interacted with specific ads.
We usually start out with the way I present it is, let's start out with a very tempered and measured approach. For the first couple months, a low budget, it might even be a little bit lower than $30 a day, depending if they're B2B or who they're targeting or what type of ad we're going to run. Let's just figure out the pathway to making sure the conversion is happening.
Right.
And then usually once you can show them and they can see, oh, we're actually getting inquiries or we're getting sales, this is actually working, then they don't mind jumping in the budget up. Everybody will spend more if they're making more. Yeah. It's that first initial foray into it and that uncertainty and the mistrust or the fear or the anxiety around things of the past. So you start out, and once you can prove that it is working and they actually can see it, right? And that's the fun part early on in reports, when you can say, well, you got X number of conversions or X number of sales, or here's the forms. These are the people that filled out those forms. Oh yeah, we got that. That was, well, you would never have gotten that without that ad. Did it, and so once they can see it happening, then they get really excited because now it actually works.
And have you guys been playing around with video ads versus just written ads? And what difference do you see?
Oh, the video ads at least convert usually double, I would say. I don't have like exact stats. I mean, there's lots of industry stats that float around, but the video ads convert way higher. Yeah. They have way higher interaction. Another type of ad and or even post are like carousel posts where people can kind of swipe through.
Right.
Those work really well.
Yeah. I was curious, just on this topic, like what about for, for people who are like, maybe they want to start a business or they've just started a business and, they're just trying to get their marketing started by I don't know, let's say they just finished their website. It's okay. It's whatever. But like what maybe 3 things could you focus on in digital marketing that maybe that a small business owner could do themselves just to get like a foot in the door, so to speak?
Yep. Google business listing. So number 1, that's huge. Like think of the yellow pages back in the day. People go and they search on Google.
You remember what that is, right?
We actually have one for our business.
Is it
holding up your computer monitor?
where you get what's it called? Backlinks?
Yeah.
We've been trying to get more backlinks. So
Yellow Pages is our friend.
Yeah. So Google business listing, and you need to keep that up to date. Like people are searching things on Google Maps, they're searching on Google. And so this is applying primarily to, local customers, right?
Right.
So Google business. Next thing is I would recommend to use a tool like Bright Local. Um, and what Bright Local allows you to do is they have a citation builder. So you can go in and put in all your company's information. It goes out, it checks for backlinks and for directory listings, and to see if the address and the phone number is correct and your business name. And then you can also buy citations, which is getting you backlinks from fairly reputable online directories. This is something I've been playing around with for the last, I don't know, three or 4 months, and buying some of those key citations or for backlinks has helped our national SEO some, but it's really helped us in the local search pack significantly. So local search pack is, if you search for a digital marketing agency in this area, and then you'll see, sometimes there'll be like Google ads. It might be like a organic link or something. And then there's the Google map listing. And then usually there's, it shows 3 businesses.
Right.
Well, we've been like, we have shot up significantly since I've, purchased a lot of different citations and backlinks, in those map pack or local pack results. So that it's made a huge difference.
Yeah, those backlinks and citations, all that does is it strengthens your authority and legitimacy, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're doing it and your competitors are not doing it, it's going to give you more visibility on a host of different levels because you become more authoritative, because other sites and directories are listing you, and all the information is consistently the same across all those listings. And that's the important thing that Google's looking for, is the consistency. So the phone number is always the same phone number, the email is always the same email, and the address and is in the exact same format in every directory. And you wouldn't think that's a big deal, but it's a annoyingly big deal to me.
Also, kind of a follow up on that, like for new businesses or just even, I guess, many businesses nowadays, what's the big difference between using or building a website from scratch or using platforms like Squarespace or Wix or any of those?
So the different platforms like Wix and Squarespace are not necessarily bad, but they are a little bit more, I don't even want to say bloated, but they're not as flexible for SEO optimizations. But if you're building a site by yourself, you don't have the budget to do anything else, they're totally fine. They're way better than tools that were available, I'm going to say, like 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Unless you are working with somebody or you have some sort of web development knowledge, building it from scratch, like installing your own, installation of WordPress on your own, hosting account, that's way beyond the knowledge of most, if not like a ridiculously high percentage of people, right?
Yeah.
So in fact, most people struggle with, something like Wix or Squarespace to begin with, right?
Oh, I mean, we've had those struggles.
Yeah.
It's like we were just redoing our website, and it's like you'd think things are simple, but it's like even there, it's like I think the biggest thing that that I've noticed as well is like there's so many limitations because what they give you is kind of what you have to use, and if you want to use something else, you can't unless you know how to code it,
Which nobody knows how to do.
which nobody knows how to do or wants to spend the time to do.
Yeah, but here's one thing that I had to get over, and I think I can say I am pretty much over this, is just work within the platform. Like I know sometimes like here's what I would do. I don't want to speak for anybody else. I would look at something and I would say, no, I want it to do this. And so I would spend so much time modifying it to make it do something the way that I wanted to do. Again, too, it's not the way the customer was expecting it or wanting it. It's the way I wanted it to be, right? And I'm like, yeah, I overcame that limitation. And then at the end of the day, it's like, well, no one's even really interacting with this.
Well, or all the modifications you did work great on your laptop, and they're all buggered up on your phone.
Yeah, then it's not mobile responsive, or there's a software or a plug-in update, and then it doesn't even work anymore anyways. And you're like, well, just wasted like a day or two of my life. So
That hurts
yeah.
close to heart.
Yeah.
Especially the
But
phone
the-
one. It's like I
Yeah.
literally did the I
If
redid.
you have a little bit of a design eye, you want to make it uniquely your own. And I think that what you're getting at is like, if you're going to build it yourself, just don't like use the template as is,
Yeah.
and try, because your customer is never going to notice. They're going to notice if the content is there, going back to the importance of content,
Yep.
speaking the language of identifying their problem and your solution, and having a really good call to action. And what the graphics are, or how the colors are presented, or the way things are laid out, as long as they can find what they're looking for, they'll be happy. So all the frustration you're going through trying to customize something that isn't really designed to be customized, at least with the average person's competency and experience,
Yeah.
is just going to drive you absolutely bonkers, and it's going to take you like 10 times as long as it should.
Yeah.
And all the time that you're spending, you could have actually paid somebody to do it, and it would have been done the way you wanted it. But all the hours you've put into it have taken you away from your business and turned you into a web developer, which you're not.
But for you guys, here's my tip. Don't worry so much about the template. Your content is going to speak for itself. Because the video and the photography that you guys have done in the past is absolutely amazing.
Right.
It's
Thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you very much.
Okay. So don't worry so much about making the template customized. Just focus on having good content that speaks to your end customer, and just let your work
Yeah.
show itself off.
In your industry, your portfolio is your prize, right? That is the thing. People are like, "Oh, these are great pictures. These are that. I want a video like that." Right? That is what they're looking for. They don't care that the site is blue, purple, orange, or green, or that it has cool little icons. Like, all they want to see is,
What
at
about
least
like
do-
scrolling horizontally, but then also like to the side and then like
right? And the other thing is, everybody thinks that their customers are going to spend way more time on their website than they actually do.
Mm.
So, like, when you look at client data, so I had a report I did this morning with a client, and the average time on site was like 1 minute and 40 seconds, and that's actually a lot of time, right? And the average number of pages was 3. So it sounds like, well, there's nothing there, but no, people are like, think about how you scroll, right? You go, you're on a mission, you're on a purpose, and if in your industry, as an example, looking for a photographer, I'm looking for a videographer, and you find Ilienfero, great, boom, right? Who are these guys? How long have they been in business, and what's their portfolio? And then, and they'll go to the next one in the Google search, and they'll look at 3 and they'll go, oh, of the 3, I really like these guys, so I'll reach out to them, and I'll reach out to them. And that, it's happening so fast because people are on a mission, and it's all happening in like a minute and a half. And then they may come back and go, okay, now of the 3, 4, 5 that I researched, these guys are the guys I want to dig a little deeper into, right?
Yeah, it's always funny because we installed a heat map not too long ago, and it was like, again, kind of like to your point, it's like you look at it and it's like people are just like going to the next page, going to the next page, and you're like, you couldn't have even read anything. It's like you glanced over, but then again, it's like it's like you feel defensive, but then it's like when you go over somebody else's website, like we do the same thing. It's like I'll literally look through. I won't even click on the video sometimes if I don't like the thumbnail, because I'm like, it's not my style, so the video is not my style, without even looking at the video.
True.
Yeah, and two, another thing is think about your site structure. So you guys do have different silos of folks coming to your or potential people coming to your site, because you may have like a medium-sized business, what I consider a medium-sized business, not the government, not necessarily, a medium-sized business who wants to have a video fully produced, okay, and then you may have people that are looking for like the awesome TV commercials you've done, or you may have somebody that's looking for you guys to come in and direct something, right? So like those are completely different client profiles potentially. Right?
Yep.
oh yeah, way different.
And so you don't just want to put all that information on one page. You want to build out a page for each one of those potential silos, and have enough content again so people scroll, because as we're saying, like, people just go and they just scroll like crazy, or they're flipped through on their phone, and like they're looking for a title or a headline that jumps out at them, or an image or a video, and they're like, oh yeah, like Yeah. So
Yeah, what he's talking about is building landing pages, right? So
Yeah,
one for
basically.
each specific type of customer. And the ideal way to do that on your home page is to not far below the fold or even at the fold is help people self-identify. So I'm a consumer. I'm just looking for family photos. I don't even know if you do that anymore, but so you know,
Their favorites. That's all we do.
let's say you did. So
Yeah.
portrait photos. So I'm not here to look at videos. I could care less. Oh, portrait photos. So that's what I'm there for. Boom. And then I get to the landing page that just talks all about corporate photos. Then the next visitor comes and they're looking for corporate video. They don't care about portrait photos. They want corporate video. Oh, that's me, corporate video. Boom. And then the whole page that just talks about how you work with companies to make corporate videos. And then commercials, right? And so if whatever those core 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 services, have them stacked right at the top of, around the fold area of your homepage so that people come in and they self-identify, that's me. And then you're just speaking to them and not just talking about photography in general and trying to cover every kind of photography you do and video in general, talking about every kind of video you do because you're boring people that are looking only for a certain type.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and going a little bit farther than that, like let's say you've established yourself a little bit. Let's say you're ready to kind of pursue the next thing, and you're ready to potentially maybe reach out to a marketing agency because now you're trying to focus more on what you do and less on the business or inside the business. You want to work on it from the outside. What's the next step for people? So let's say they have their website, they're ranked a little bit, they have the basics down. And I know you guys do the digital 360, so maybe if you guys want to talk about that and kind of how the process of how you take a client from nothing to them succeeding.
I think the word that scares people off, whether it's small business, medium business, or large business, as soon as they hear the word strategy, they're like, well, I don't really want to spend the time on just paying for a strategy. It's like saying, I want to build a house, but I don't want to spend money to get the plans drawn up. It's just ridiculous, right? But that's the comparison,
Yeah.
right? We'll just wing it, right? And then what does it look like? It looks like a hack job, right? So that's what happens with people's marketing is they just, well, I don't really want to pay to have a strategy. I don't want anybody to help me build it. I'm smart. I have a degree in business or I have a degree in marketing. I can do this myself. And the pride that we were talking about earlier gets in the way of investing in getting it done right. So if you get the strategy, I had a call just this week, literally. Client that I talked to 3.5 years ago presented the whole thing, and she said, yeah, we can probably do this on our own, but thanks for the pitch, whatever. So they did do it on their own for 3.5 years. Literally last week, she emails me and she says, do you remember me? And I'm like, yeah, I do remember you. Can we set up a meeting? I want to chat. Great. Set up a chat. And she goes, so for the 3.5 years, we've been doing all this stuff and none of it's working. And I realized what we need is a strategy. And that's exactly what I told her 3.5 years ago. But what happened is she realized she had done, companies get into this place, and we did it too. So I'm not saying anything that anybody else isn't, that is unique to everybody else and not us, is you think you can do it on your own. So you start building a bridge and it gets half built, and then you get distracted by something else because you're not sure exactly how to complete it, or you get distracted because something else looks more interesting and more exciting. And so you end up with a whole bunch of half-built bridges that never take you anywhere. And so the goal is with a strategy, you figure out what is one of the top 2 or 3 things that I should be doing that's going to help me grow my business. And you're getting that opinion from somebody who does this as a profession and has the expertise to guide you in that based on data, based on your market, based on your competitors, based on your target customers, based on your product expertise or service expertise. Here's what we recommend you do next. 1, 2, or 3, or all 3. And then if they can say, oh, well, we can only afford to do 1, well, then let's do that and do it well and do it right and do it to its completion. And then once that's done, you'll start seeing the results. Sales will improve, your branding will improve, your profile will improve, your expertise will improve, and then let's move to the next one, either number 2 or number 3. And they can do it themselves. They can do it with some help with their team, or they can do it with the help of hiring someone like us to help them do it, or have us do it for them, right? And so the strategy is the piece that everybody wants to bail on because they don't see it as an investment in profitability. And I think that's really where there's a disconnect in the business community, small, medium, or large business is, well, I don't want to take 2 months to build a strategy. And often that happens too, is because they've tried that before and it ends up being this nice little report that sits there on their desk and they never open it. And our approach is we create that report. It looks great. It's not nearly that thick, but it's very actionable. Okay, so now that you see the data, now that you see your competitors, now that you see your industry, now you see your value proposition, we know your sales goals, your objectives, your business goals. This is what we would recommend you do: 1, 2, or 3, or all 3. And then we really push hard. I had a conversation this week. I told you about it actually the other day, that I went back and reached out to them. What are you doing to implement? How's the implementation of your strategy going? Right? And so I'll reach back, even though I'm not getting paid to do that. I do that because I know without guidance, they're going to slip because they're going to get sucked into the day to day, and they're going to go, you're right. He even said to me, I'm not 100% sure actually how we're doing, and that's not the right answer. I'll have to talk to my team and find out, but I'm guessing we need some help getting this done. Thanks for holding us accountable, right? So strategy also, if you've got a good company working with you, will help you stay accountable to getting it done so that the bridges are getting fully built and you're seeing the strategy will pay for itself over and over and over again if you have it. And without it, the whole thing's going to be a bunch of unbuilt bridges and you're just going to be frustrated. And 3.5 years later, you're going to call me back and say, I think I need a strategy.
House of cards, basically, and you just
Yeah, it's true.
And
You want to add to that?
No, I was going to say strategy, not just strategy.
and on that note, is there anything else that you guys want to say, plug, mention, any services, or just in general, any advice that you want to leave people with? If you want to look in the camera, you can look at us, whatever you guys want to do.
Just make sure you have a strategy.
Yeah.
And don't give up too soon. Like David was saying, a lot of companies have half-built bridges, and BeResponsive has some half-built bridges too. There's a lot of stuff that we have tried and then given up on. But in fact, I need to still give a number 3. You said what were the 3 things?
Oh, yeah.
And I said
please give a third.
Google Business. I actually forget what number.
Bright local.
Yes. So, yeah. Bright local citations. Number 3 is get reviews. Or it would be a toss up between reviews and content. But
And by content, you mean content on the My Business page?
no,
Or
content on your website.
Okay.
Yeah. But, websites are, there was a guy and he said this, it is so true. He said, your website is like a puppy. If you don't feed it, it's going to die. And so many businesses, they build their website. It takes them so long to get it done because the number one issue with building a website is almost always content.
It is always
Okay. It is, people don't know how to source the content. They don't know how to write the content. They don't this is why a lot of times we like to interview people and pull it out of them and they give it back to them and they're like, oh, wow, this is, about our organization. Yeah. But I guess to finish it off for me is the shameless plug is that what we're really good at is strategy. And so stop half building bridges and talk to someone, or you could talk to, come talk to us and we can help you figure out.
BeResponsive.ca.
Yeah.
Or you have both.
BeResponsive.com, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And let us help you. Like we do have a 90-minute free discovery session where we go through to identify, the top opportunities for your business in the customer value journey. And it's not our recommendation. It is us walking you through a process to identify what you should attack next. And oftentimes people want to work with us long term to help them with that. Some people, they get great value from that, and then they go and they fix it themselves. They have an internal marketing team or they have the expertise to do it. But just like David was saying with the half-built bridges, stop half building bridges and focus on one bridge, the right bridge, the bridge that's going to give you the best ROI right now that's unique for your business, and just send it, do it right, and measure the results.
Build the bridge that takes you straight to BeResponsive.com.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a great bridge.
Beautiful bridge.
Also, if you wait, are our videos up on the?
Your videos?
Yeah.
You did for us?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on different landing pages on our site. Yeah.
Yeah, find those landing pages and go check those out. Thank you for listening to our conversation with David Tonen and Garth Holmes. To support the podcast, please consider subscribing below and liking the video. Before I go, I'll leave you with a quote from Douglas Warner III. Remember, your competitor is only one mouse click away. Thank you for listening to the Ilienfero podcast. We hope to see you next time.